Hi, I'm John Castling and I'm a PhD student in the Archaeology Department in Durham, but I'm also the curator for archaeology at the Auckland Project, which owns Auckland Castle, but also owns the land of one really important archaeological site in the northeast, that's Binchester Roman Fort. I'm standing at the fort now and you can see it's quite quiet and rural around me. There's some sheep just over that hedge, but in the Roman period this would have been really bustling place to be. Behind me you can see the bank, that's the edge of the fort, and there have been a number of excavations done at Binchester over the past 100 years or so, and some of those have uncovered some fantastic remains. There's been a couple of bathhouses that have been recovered, one within the fort which connected to the commanding officer's building, and one just outside the fort which was excavated by Durham University and shows an extramural bathhouse, a regimental bathhouse we think, within the civilian settlement of the fort, which is generally called the vicus, and these vici are really interesting places, and for me that's what makes Binchester really special. It's a Roman fort. There are many other Roman forts in the northeast, some that have been excavated more than Binchester. But what's really interesting about Binchester is that the vicus is huge and it seems to last an awfully long time throughout the life of the fort. The fort itself was built at the end of the 1st century AD as the Roman military is expanding northwards across the British Isles. Then in the middle of the 2nd century AD there's something of a hiatus as the fort changed its function as the Roman military pushed north from the frontier at Hadrian's Wall to the Antonine Wall. When they revert to Hadrian's Wall, the fort is re-established, and we see the foundation of the stone fort at Binchester. There is Anglo-Saxon activity here. We know there are some burials here, and so Binchester is a really interesting place to study that transition between Roman Britain and early medieval England, and it's a fascinating site for that reason. It continues in use into the later medieval period as a little village before it becomes eventually just the farm that it now is. So it's a site that's seen relatively little modern interference, which means as an archaeological potential it's huge. And excavations here have uncovered some fantastic objects that are connected to the people that we think lived, worked and moved through the vicus and the fort along Deer Street, which was the main Roman road that connected York up to the Roman wall at Corbridge and then beyond into what's now Scotland. And it's a really interesting site to work on. It's a really important place for us to understand not just how the Roman military are living, but how Britain's native population of County Durham are relating to the Romans. And when we've done excavations around the vicus, the area with the big white tent on behind me, that has the extramural bathhouse in it, but area around that has demonstrated quite kind of commercial type buildings, strip buildings along Deer Street, but where we've dug to the north of the site, where one of the side roads goes out of the fort, there we've found what looks more like industry, so we can see that there are different things happening around the fort, and it gives us an insight into the ordinary lives of people who are here. You can see there are still upstanding earthworks here, this big bank that's behind me, that's from the stone fort, which is really the second phase of fort that we have here, and we have found evidence for the timber fort in excavations, big ditch that's a little bit larger than the stone fort, and there's fantastic standing stone structures, but I just love Binchester because the contrast between this kind of rural farm landscape that I'm now standing in, with the bugs buzzing and the birds tweeting and the sheep baaing, and you think how different that would be in the Roman period when you've got hearts of commerce and industry and military infrastructure and a kind of political administrative centre. I just think this is one of the things that really is evocative of archaeology, that right beneath our feet we have the evidence of a hustle and bustle of a busier and far more occupied landscape.